hitting the recording button again. So how do I combat this problem? Because I still want to enter the city name, and somehow I am stuck on this empty line, which is the outcome of me trying to get the next double value. Not good. So the workaround, I would say, well, I would call it a workaround because this is really a condition that there's nothing for me to do. I have these methods on the scanner. They're really by design. This is how it works. So I will say here the following. I will say, because I am in the process of getting user input, and I am expecting this user input to be in a very specific format, I will immediately after saying nextDouble, knowing that I am telling the user, maybe like my prompt should be really enter subtotal and hit enter. Right? So I'm telling them specifically, this is what I want you to do. Like enter subtotal and hit enter. Right? Then I can safely say next line, discard that line entirely. I know it's going to be an empty line. It's just an outcome that I already asked the user. I know that's what the user is going to type. And then I should be safe to say enter next line for city name. So, city name. And hopefully be able to get a meaningful non-empty line this time. So let's say skip a new line in the input buffer. By the way, the word buffer does really well describe all these string devices, because ultimately, if you think about the keyboards, files, network connections, all of these really are streaming devices. The keyboard really streams characters for me. And someplace, somewhere in the operating system, they're getting accumulated. Then the operating system says, okay, who do you think now should be able to get this input? Well, seems to be like this program is in focus. Maybe, is it waiting for an input? Yes, it does. So, okay, so here's your input. The program on the other side is trying to use some interesting facilities, such as this scanner class, which has all these fancy next and other types of methods to extract the input, and it does begin to manipulate the information from the buffer. But ultimately, essentially to me, in my mind, the keyboard is equivalent to, essentially, let me try to make it a little cleaner here. To me, I associate the keyboard with, let me try to even erase more here. Just the keyboard is some kind of a memory buffer, reserved memory, and the system populates it with some characters, right? Something is being typed, including enter. Of course, an enter is an important key. It's not going to get lost, right? So it's going to be populated in the buffer and so on, right? So someone can continue typing, and it just keeps populated. Most likely, it's some sort of a cyclical buffer, so that at some point, so the software that manages it realizes, okay, we just reached the end of this memory. Something else was typed over here, and this is the end of this buffer. So it kind of lets wrap around and make sure that our scanner will continue to read from where appropriate, like the position in the buffer is kept. Yes, question.
Yeah, referring to your program there, are you having them also use at the end of, let's say, enter your name? Are they supposed to also hit an enter key at that point?
A good question. The question is, should we then be doing this at the end of enter name and perhaps, I'm sorry, not this, but this line, right? Should we try this, and should we also try it after an int? Skip the new line. I assume, yes, you can if you're expecting the user to hit enter. If essentially, if we do expect the user to hit enter every time, like this, then the answer is yes. You can without um, uh, without any additional problems. You can do this and essentially explicitly process the new line character in the buffer.
One follow-up question.
Yes.
If you don't tell them to hit enter, how does the first next know when the end of the program is done? I mean the end of the input is done.
Well, it's tricky because this example here is commonly referred to as formatted input. The formatted input is an excellent option when such input comes from a file. In a file, you probably have a specification describing every single piece of that file and how it's organized and where each new line is located and where is when there is no new line. When dealing with the user, this is not a really a flexible way of getting information. For example, if I run this program and it says enter your name and hit enter, okay, well, what if I'm a user and I type Frank and I hit enter, then it works. Then it says enter count value and hit enter. Okay, what if I type 123 space and I ignore the fact that someone told me hit enter? So what happens here is that I get my integer 123 here, right? So let's see what happened. What happened here? I hit my where was I? I said enter count value and hit enter. So nextInt took this highlighted part 123 and stored it in integer, and I was able to echo back 123 for my count. But look what happens next. Now I'm typing, okay, 10.04 as the subtotal and hit enter. So what happened here is that this entire line or remainder of the line was processed by this scanner nextLine. So it says skip new line in the input buffer, but this also could be saying not just as a side effect, I guess. This could also or skip any input until new line. So this may be what I want or not. Again, it depends on the information that I'm expecting. And so, yes, you can do the next line anywhere you want, but this time the next line process this section, and it actually did generate the string with this input, but I never took it from next line, and it got processed and ignored by me. So, good question, and unfortunately, it can get a little bit non-trivial. So in my case, I was testing it, trying to find out whether there is a way for me to crash this program or get some invalid input or something of that nature, but it just happened to be that this next line matched this highlighted input, space, LHA, LFKA, new line, and all of it got processed and ignored by the next line. And then I moved on to, say, nextDouble and was able to type 10.04 and was able to also get that input. So let me finish this and make a few notes on this. How does next work? Going back to the drawing board. So how does next work? Again, someplace in memory there is a buffer. It is populated for me. Now, it can be just A, B, C, D, E, or it can be space, 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 A, B, C, D, E. Well, by design, if you read the documentation for method next, it will tell you that any white space is discarded before the token that is expected, which is a printable series of characters. Series of printable characters. So this will be your token. But as soon as any other any other white space character, such as tab, right? The tab, which is decimal 8 code or ASCII code, or space, which is decimal 32 encoding of a character, or new line, or it could be a carriage return. All of these characters, if found next to this token, becoming the stop sign for this input. So essentially, this name will never get a tab or space or new line or carriage return. Instead, it will say, oh, that's what I got, A, B, C, D, E from the input. Now notice that also there could be some white space character before it. Those get processed and completely thrown out and ignored entirely. They're lost. There's no way for you to say next and detect white space characters. There is a way to do that explicitly from using other methods on the scanner, but not next. Similarly, when you say nextInt, what it does is that it's expecting, let me erase this little part right here, it's expecting digits, and it will interpret the digits as being, a legal input for an integer. So like 4, 5, right? Then 0 and 3. And then it is also, the documentation will tell you that what is expected at the end of this token, which represents a number, that there has to be a white space. Okay, so one of these. And so you're going to get 4,503 as a result of this input. And again, you could be having 0 or more white space in front of it, and you'll never know. So let's test this, right? So if I run this program again, and it says enter your name and hit enter. Well, actually, before I run it, let me say debug. I guess there's this button here, X, which will stop running. Click to cancel process. Yes, I want to cancel it. Let me make a small modification to this. When I echo, let me do print my square bracket so that I can show where the beginning and ending of input and was, and how well I was able to capture it. Right? So if I do this to display it all right here, use square brackets just to kind of format output in a way that I can easily see the beginning and ending of each input and output, and save this. And well, you know what? Let me stop this whole